If you took somebody from sea level to the top of Everest, no supplemental oxygen, no support, they would be unconscious within minutes. Everest is a very inhospitable environment.
Imagine standing on the world's tallest peak, Mount Everest. But beyond the beautiful views, there's something else, something bizarre. This towering giant, revered by climbers and adventurers, holds secrets that would make your skin crawl. What if I told you that among the stunning snow-capped mountains, you'll find things that defy logic, discoveries that blur the line between the ordinary and the extraordinary, from a mysterious green boot to an unexplained third man following mountaineers? Mount Everest is more than just a climb, it's a journey of the unknown. Get ready to uncover the strange and the unexplained as they film this on Mount Everest, and it's mind-blowing. UFO above Mount Everest.
Spotted something in the sky, and this is what we saw.
What if I told you that beyond the snow-capped mountains, something else concealed itself in the thin, icy air? Something not of this world? For centuries, Mount Everest has dazzled the imagination of adventurers and explorers. But now, it has caught the attention of a different kind of observer, those searching the skies for signs of extraterrestrial life. In a project led by renowned filmmaker and climber David Breeshears,
this is the most realistic, dramatic, and exciting Everest project.
A series of 477 breathtaking images of Everest were compiled into a staggering 2 billion pixel mosaic. The purpose? To highlight the impacts of climate change. But within these images, something unexpected was found. There, floating above the slopes of Everest, was a strange, disc-shaped object, too high for a drone, too isolated for a helicopter, so what could it be? UFO enthusiasts called it one of the most compelling pieces of evidence. No doubt theories abound. Some believe this could be a story of extraterrestrial origin, observing the highest point on our planet, perhaps drawn to the mystery of Everest, just as we are. Others suggest more grounded explanations, though even the skeptics are puzzled by the object's altitude and shape. Mountains have long been the stage for mysterious events. Lights in the sky, strange noises, and unexplained disappearances. Could Mount Everest now be joining this list of locations? Is there something about Mount Everest that attracts the unknown? One thing is certain, our quest to understand the unknown is far from over. The 1952 expedition.
Their purpose? To scale the tallest mountain on the face of the earth, Mount Everest.
In 1952, a Russian expedition set out on a dauntless mission to conquer Mount Everest. This was during the height of the Cold War, and the stakes were as high as the mountain itself. The team, consisting of some of the USSR's most elite climbers, was determined to plant the Soviet flag on the world's highest peak, showcasing their nation's might. But Everest had other plans. Battling extreme cold, thin air, and harsh conditions, the climbers pushed forward with all their might. The expedition was shrouded in secrecy, with little information released to the outside world. Rumors swirled about the challenges they faced, including frostbite and equipment failures that tested their limits. Sadly, the expedition ended in disaster, but several years later, some frozen bodies were found, and everyone thought it was theirs. However, after a while, it was discovered that they belonged to another ill-fated team, lost to the world in their pursuit of the peak of Mount Everest. Englishman Maurice Wilson. In the history of Everest's most adventurers, Maurice Wilson was a figure of both fascination and tragedy. Born on April 21, 1898, Wilson was a British soldier and aviator whose life was marked by an extraordinary quest for adventures. After leaving the Army in 1919, Wilson, like many of the lost generation, struggled to adapt to post-war civilian life. He wandered through London, the United States, and New Zealand, holding various jobs but never finding peace or contentment. Despite achieving financial stability, Wilson's health and mental state deteriorated. He became physically ill, losing weight and suffering from severe coughing spasms. His fortunes took a dramatic turn in 1932 when he underwent a secretive treatment involving 35 days of intensive prayer and fasting. This prayer time, reportedly taught to him by a mysterious man in Mayfair, promised miraculous healing. Whether this figure truly existed or was a product of Wilson's own blend of Christianity and Eastern mysticism remains a question. Fueled by a newfound belief in the power of prayer and fasting, Wilson set about on his bravery Everest expedition in 1934. Despite his lack of mountaineering or flying experience, he managed to reach an impressive height of 6,920 meters. His journey, marked by both daunting ambition and personal beliefs, ended tragically. In 1935, his body was discovered by a British expedition, dressed in women's clothing, a bizarre and haunting detail that revealed his final days. Ancient animals. Imagine a time when Mount Everest was not the towering, icy mountain we know today, but a lush, vibrant seascape with life. Long before it became the world's highest mountain above sea level, Everest was submerged under a shallow sea, part of the vast Tethys Ocean that once sprawled across what is now Asia. Fossils of ancient marine creatures, including gigantic ammonites and primordial sea reptiles, were uncovered in the Everest region. Fish fossils found high on Mount Everest gave a glimpse into the Earth's history.
Fish fossils on top of
fish
Mount
fossils,
Everest.
what do they say about...
Well, they just say that those are pushed up over slowly over millions of years.
Here's why. Millions of years ago, the region that is now Mount Everest was part of the ancient Tethys Ocean.
You're profoundly sleep-deprived. There's little sleep at altitude. You're malnourished.
A vast, shallow sea that spanned much of what is now Asia. Everest was formed through the collision of the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates. This collision, which began around 50 million years ago, pushed the seabed upwards, transforming the ocean floor into the towering peaks of the Himalayas. As the Tethys Ocean receded and the Himalayas rose, the remains of ancient marine life were buried under layers of sediment. Over time, these fossils became exposed due to erosion and geological activity. Fish fossils found at high altitudes were remnants of this ancient marine ecosystem, preserved as the ocean bed was thrust upward. This geological transformation aligned with various historical and mythological accounts of significant global changes, such as the biblical flood, which some interpret as a metaphor for these massive geological activities. George Mallerie and Andrew Irvine.
Revelation, if you will, that shed new light on the Mallerie and Irvine.
Mount Everest, Earth's highest and most formidable summit, a place where dreams clash with destiny, where the line between triumph and tragedy is razor thin. In 1924, two men took off on a journey with their fate shrouded in mystery. This is the story of George Mallerie and Andrew Irvine, the brave souls who may have been the first to stand atop the world's highest peak. The 1924 British Mount Everest expedition was the second of its kind, following the 1922 expedition, with one singular goal: to achieve the first ascent of Mount Everest. Leading this daring attempt was George Mallerie, a seasoned mountaineer whose passion for Everest was as fierce as the mountain itself. Beside him was Andrew "Sandy" Irvine, a 22-year-old novice with a mind for engineering and a heart full of ambition. Mallerie was a man driven by a singular obsession: to conquer Everest. He had been on the mountain before, but in 1924, he believed that this would be the year he finally reached the summit. His choice of Irvine as a climbing partner was controversial. Irvine was inexperienced in high-altitude climbing, but he had one invaluable skill: his expertise with the oxygen equipment, which was critical for surviving in the thin air near Everest's peak. The bond between Mallerie and Irvine had grown strong during their journey to India, and despite Irvine's inexperience, Mallerie believed in his companion's strength and resolve. On June 6, 1924, Mallerie and Irvine departed from Camp 4 with 8 porters at their side. They were last seen by fellow climber Noel Odell at 8,572 meters, moving toward the summit. Odell watched in awe as the two tiny figures ascended the ridge. Then they vanished into the mist, never to be seen alive again. Their disappearance sparked decades of speculation and debate. Did they reach the summit before they perished, becoming the first to conquer Everest? Or did the mountain claim them before they could achieve their dream? In 1999, a discovery was made that only deepened the mystery. George Mallerie's body was found at 26,760 feet, perfectly preserved by the cold, but without the conclusive evidence needed to solve the riddle of their fate. Yeti footprints. High in the remote slopes of the mountain, where silence is broken only by the howling winds, a creature feared by mountaineers known by many names. The Yeti, the abominable snowman, the king of snow-dwelling cryptids resided. Is it merely a myth, or could there be truth behind the stories of this ape-like being that roamed the snowy heights of the world's tallest mountains?
They came across a set of huge footprints that went away from them down the glacier.
As Westerners began their daring climbs of the mountain peaks in the early 20th century, the stories of the Yeti began to take on a life of their own. Reports of strange beings began making the rounds. But it was in the autumn of 1951, on the desolate slopes of Mount Everest, that one of the most infamous pieces of Yeti evidence was discovered: footprints, unlike anything ever seen before. Eric Shipton, a seasoned English mountaineer, along with Dr. Michael Ward, were part of a crucial expedition in 1951.
And Shipton and the expedition's Dr. Michael Ward were working on a glacier a couple of miles
to chart possible routes to Everest's summit from Nepal. This expedition was not only important in the eventual success of Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay's historic ascent in 1953, but it also became legendary for an entirely different reason. As Shipton and Ward trekked through the Menlung Basin at an altitude of 15,000 feet, they stumbled upon something utterly bizarre: a series of massive footprints pressed deep into the snow. With no scientific tools on hand, the explorers used what they had: an ice pick, a backpack, and Ward's left boot to measure the strange tracks. Shipton snapped a series of photographs, and the footprints were far wider than any humans, grotesquely shaped with toes that seemed almost alien. The big toe was particularly disturbing, lower and larger than one would expect from a human foot. And the question that baffled them the most: if this was indeed a human, how had they walked barefoot through the freezing snow at such a high altitude? Well, the footprints of the Yeti, real or imagined, remind us that the world still holds secrets waiting to be discovered. Where the line between myth and reality blurs, one question remains: is the Yeti just a story, or could it be something more? Third man syndrome. Imagine you're stranded in one of the most desolate places on Earth, facing insurmountable odds with every step you take. The cold bites at your skin, and exhaustion weighs heavy on your bones. Yet, in your darkest moment, when all hope seems lost, you feel a presence, a comforting figure walking beside you, guiding you, encouraging you to keep going. This isn't a hallucination. It's something far more mysterious. Welcome to the world of the third man syndrome. This phenomenon first came to light during Sir Ernest Shackleton's harrowing Antarctic expedition from 1914 to 1917.
Next, a team has located the wreck of Quest, which is the ship used by Sir Ernest Shackleton on his final expedition.
Stranded in pack ice for over 2 years, Shackleton and his men faced unimaginable hardships as they fought to survive the unforgiving Antarctic landscape. In his 1919 book, South, Shackleton described an experience during the final leg of their journey to safety. As they marched over the mountains of South Georgia, Shackleton believed they were accompanied by a companion. He felt that we were 4, not 3. Shackleton wasn't alone in this experience. His admission prompted other survivors of extreme hardship to come forward, sharing similar encounters. This phenomenon inspired T.S. Eliot's famous lines in his 1922 poem, The Wasteland.
I saw myself in those pictures, the men playing soccer on the ice.
The third man syndrome has been reported by numerous adventurers over the years, including renowned climbers like Reinhold Messner and polar explorers like Peter Hillary and Anne Bancroft. These seasoned explorers have all described the sensation of an invisible companion guiding them through life-threatening situations. Even more compelling is the case of mountain climber Joe Simpson, who documented a similar experience in his 1988 book, Touching the Void. After a devastating fall in the Peruvian Andes, Simpson heard a voice that directed him back to base camp, saving his life. Is this mysterious presence merely a psychological response to extreme stress, a manifestation of the mind's will to survive? Or is it something more, a guardian angel, an otherworldly guide that steps in when human endurance reaches its limit? The Unknown Four. On May 22, 2017, Mount Everest claimed the lives of 4 climbers, whose disappearance became one of the mountain's mysteries. These climbers, part of an international expedition, vanished without a trace. Their disappearance sent shockwaves through the mountaineering community, and this sparked a massive search effort that uncovered more questions than answers. Despite the efforts of rescue teams and mountaineering experts, the search was restricted by brutal weather conditions, and the bodies of the climbers were never found. In response, the Nepalese government launched a thorough investigation into the circumstances surrounding their disappearance. The authorities coordinated with international climbing organizations to piece together the puzzle, reviewing satellite data and weather reports. Despite these efforts, the fate of the 4 climbers remained a mystery in Mount Everest. The Snow Leopard. The snow leopard, a legendary creature that reigns supreme in the world's highest and most dangerous mountain. With its breathtaking, thick, and pale gray spots, it sure provides the perfect camouflage and lives up to its name as the ghost of the mountain. Its fur is not just for show. It insulates against the biting cold, allowing the snow leopard to survive in temperatures as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Its broad, powerful feet are designed for climbing and roaming snowy slopes, acting like natural snowshoes to prevent it from sinking into the snow. These incredible cats are solitary hunters, using their stealth and agility to track down prey. Their primary diet consists of mountain goats, blue sheep, and occasionally smaller mammals. With a single, powerful leap of up to 50 feet, a snow leopard can surprise its prey from a high point. This remarkable jumping ability is true evidence of their strength and hunting prowess. They are known as special animals and deeply respected as the ninja of Mount Everest.
The snow leopard is known as the ghost of the mountains for good reason.
The Death Zone. Up here, above 8,000 meters, lies a place so unforgiving, so perilous, that mountaineers have given it a name that strikes fear into the hearts of even the most seasoned climbers. The Death Zone. The Death Zone was first defined in 1953 by Swiss doctor Edouard Wyss-Dunant, who called it the lethal zone. It's an area where the atmospheric pressure drops so low that the human body is unable to sustain life for long without supplementary oxygen. At this altitude, the air is thin, oxygen levels are critically low, and every breath is a struggle for survival. For those who dare to enter the death zone, the dangers go beyond the physical. The mental toll is just as deadly. At these extreme altitudes, decision-making becomes clouded, and fatigue blurs the line between reality and hallucination. Many climbers have lost their lives not just to the lack of oxygen, but to the poor decisions made in this fragile state, decisions like continuing to push for the summit when conditions turn deadly, or misjudging the safest route. Over the years, the death zone has claimed countless lives. The bodies of those who perished often remain where they fell, frozen in time as a stark reminder of the risks that come with attempting to conquer the world's highest peak. No matter how much you prepare, no matter how strong you think you are, the death zone is unlike anything else on Earth. It strips you down to your core, tests your will to survive, and forces you to confront your own mortality. Up there, the mountain decides who makes it back and who doesn't. The Sleeping Beauty. Mount Everest holds countless stories of victories and catastrophes. For those who dare to challenge its unforgiving slopes, the mountain can be both a dream fulfilled and a final resting place. Among the many souls who have perished in pursuit of its summit, one story stands out, a story of love, loss, and the haunting presence of a woman who came to be known as Sleeping Beauty.
She was trying to be the first American woman to climb Everest without supplementary oxygen.
Frances Arsentiev was a woman of immense courage. She harbored a dream that few dared to pursue, to summit Mount Everest without the aid of bottled oxygen. In 1992, she married Sergei Arsentiev, and together they conquered many peaks, including the first ascent of a Russian mountain they named Peak Goodwill. Their bond was as strong as the mountains they climbed, and together they set their sights on Everest. In May 1998, Frances and Sergei arrived at Everest's base camp, ready to make history. The ascent was exhausting, and their progress was slowly hampered by the absence of supplemental oxygen. After 2 aborted summit attempts, they finally reached the top of the world on May 22, 1998. Frances Arsentiev became the first American woman to summit Everest without oxygen. But the summit was not the end of their journey. It was just the beginning of a tragic descent. The lateness of their summit and the lack of oxygen meant that they were forced to spend another night above 8,000 meters in the region known as the Death Zone. At some point during the night, the couple became separated. Sergei made it back to Camp 6 the following morning, only to realize that Francie was missing. With no time to lose, Sergei set off back up the mountain, carrying an oxygen tank and medicine, desperate to find his wife. But what happened next was a disaster. Frances was found the next morning by a team of Uzbek climbers, barely conscious, suffering from severe frostbite and oxygen deprivation.
So his body was found about 3 years later, and given where he was found, he fell at some point.
They did everything they could to help her, but their own oxygen supplies were decreasing, and they were forced to leave her behind. As the Uzbek climbers descended, they encountered Sergei on his way back up. This was the last time he was seen alive. The following day, on May 24th, Briton Ian Woodall, South African Cathy O'Dowd, and several more Uzbeks came across Frances once more. She lay where she had been left, her condition even worse than before. Despite their best efforts, they were unable to save her, and she passed away on the mountain, still clipped to the guide rope, as if resting in an eternal sleep. Frances Arsentiev was just 40 years old when she died on Everest, leaving behind her young son while her body lay peacefully on the mountains. The Rainbow Valley. Mount Everest, the name alone conjures images of breathtaking heights, endless skies, and the ultimate symbol of human perseverance.
Mount Everest, the world's highest mountain.
But for all its splendor, Everest holds a secret that chills the heart and haunts the soul. Beneath its snow-covered peaks lies a valley not of green fields or blooming flowers, but of death. This is Rainbow Valley, a place where dreams have perished. When you hear about Rainbow Valley from a distance, the name might evoke images of a vibrant, beautiful aesthetic. But the reality is far more distressing. These aren't just colors. They are the last remnants of human lives, frozen in time. The blue, red, orange, and green jackets that once protected climbers from the harsh weather now serve as eternal markers of their final resting place. Every year, countless climbers attempt to conquer Everest, driven by the charm of standing on the roof of the world. Some succeed, and their names are inscribed in history, but others are not so fortunate. Those who fall often do so beyond the reach of rescue, and their bodies left where they fell. Climbers who pass through Rainbow Valley cannot help but be reminded about how life is so fickle. Mount Everest is a symbol of human achievement and adventurers, which pushes the boundaries of what is possible. But it is also a place of deep sorrow. For those who dare to dream of standing on its summit, remember this: the mountain does not give up its secrets easily, and sometimes the price of knowing them is far too high. Subscribers pick. Despite the dangers surrounding Mount Everest, its allure continues to draw climbers from around the world, each one willing to risk everything for the chance to stand on the roof of the world. Mount Everest is a place where immortals are made, but it's also a place where dreams come to die. For those who survive, it's proof of human endurance and the relentless pursuit of the impossible. But wait, there's more. At 29,032 feet, Everest isn't just a mountain, it's a graveyard. Hundreds of climbers never made it back down. and some remain where they fell, preserved forever in the ice. And that's just scratching the surface. What supernatural humans have survived the test of time at such unforgiving altitudes? Every breath could be your last. But for those who push through the pain, the exhaustion, and the fear, there's a chance to touch the heavens, if only for a moment. Let's know in the comments section what your thoughts are of visiting Mount Everest. The Green Boots Everest. Here we uncover the story of one of the most secrets in Mount Everest, known as Green Boots. The story of Green Boots began on the northeast ridge route of Mount Everest, where climbers battled the thin air at 27,900 feet above sea level. Here, in a small limestone alcove, the body of an unidentified climber laid for decades. Wearing bright green Koflek mountaineering boots, this figure became a landmark on the mountain, a point of reference known to nearly every climber who has attempted the north route. But who was this person? And how did they come to be here? To understand the mystery of Green Boots, we must travel back to 1996, a year that saw one of the deadliest disasters in Everest's history. Among the climbers on the mountain that year was Tsewang Paljor.
Such as Tsewang Paljor's or Green Boots is still up on the mountain.
A member of the Indo-Tibetan Border Police Expedition. He was part of a team attempting the first Indian ascent of Everest from the northeast side. On May 10th, Paljor and two of his teammates pushed toward the summit. Against the odds, they reached the top, leaving prayer flags and offerings. But the summit is only half the journey, and as they journeyed back, the storm tightened its grip. The three men were last seen moving slowly down the mountain. Radio contact was lost, and they never returned to camp. It is widely believed that Tsewang Paljor is the man we now know as Green Boots, his body left behind and frozen in time. Over the years, Green Boots became more than just a figure. He became a landmark. Every climber on the north route would pass by his resting place, a stark reminder of the dangers that lay ahead. For some, he was a symbol of caution. For others, a ghost of Everest. But for many, Green Boots was also a figure of controversy. In 2006, British climber David Sharp was found near Green Boots in a hypothermic state. Mistaken for the lifeless figure, Sharp's cries for help were ignored by several climbers, who believed him to be Green Boots. By the time his true condition was realized, it was too late. In 2014, Green Boots was moved from his prominent position, likely by the China-Tibet Mountaineering Association, which managed the north side of Everest. The decision was met with mixed emotions. Relief for some, sorrow for others. The alcove where he rested is now empty, but the legend of Green Boots lives on. The Hillary Step. Hidden amidst Everest beauty is a peculiar feature that stands out as both a physical and symbolic barrier to climbers, the Hillary Step. The Hillary Step is a 40-foot vertical rock face that sits nearly 29,000 feet above sea level. Located on the southeast ridge of Everest, it's positioned halfway between the south summit and the true summit. For climbers, the Hillary Step has long been regarded as the ultimate technical challenge on the mountain. But don't let its seemingly friendly name fool you. The Hillary Step is not just a minor obstacle, it's a barrier that climbers must overcome before they can claim victory at the summit. Radio contact was lost, who, along with his Sherpa Tenzing Norgay, first conquered Everest in 1953, the Hillary Step was a critical juncture on their climb. Sir Edmund Hillary described it as a formidable-looking rock step, one that could very well spell the difference between success and failure.
It would be conceivable that at the start of an expedition there might be a couple of people who would have been more suited.
Hillary and Norgay faced the step with a mix of fear and resolve. The rock was nearly holdless, but they found a crack between the snow and the rock, which they used to climb. Every inch was a battle against exhaustion. Yet this very challenge was part of what made their triumph unique. In recent years, the Hillary Step became a bottleneck on Everest's southeast ridge. Climbers ascending and descending had to take turns on the fixed ropes, which were often installed by the first ascending team of the season. With the growing number of climbers, this passageway sometimes created long delays. The delays were not just an inconvenience, They were dangerous because the weather conditions can change unpredictably, so climbers have to go through the steps quickly and carefully, with every second counting. Unfortunately, the Hillary step profile changed in 2015. A powerful earthquake struck Nepal, causing damage to Everest. The earthquake destroyed the Hillary step, and the once distinct 40-foot rock face was reduced to a less defined slope, changing the challenge climber's fate. The Kummbu Icefall. The Kummbu Icefall, a frozen river of jagged ice blocks and yawning crevasses, lies at the head of the Kummbu Glacier and the foot of the western CWM, perched at an altitude of nearly 18,000 feet above sea level. This is where the journey to the summit truly begins, and where climbers face one of the most dangerous sections of the South Col route. But what makes the Kummbu Icefall so dangerous? The glacier that forms this icy nature is in constant motion, shifting between 3 to 4 feet down the mountain every day. As it moves, the ice contorts and fractures. For climbers, crossing the Kummbu Icefall is a race against time. Snow bridges, which form deceptively solid surfaces, can collapse without warning. Massive ice blocks, or seracs, some weighing thousands of tons, can tumble down in an instant. The danger is so immense that even the extensive networks of ropes and ladders set up by expert guides offer no guarantees of safety. Between 1953 and 2016, the Kummbu Icefall claimed the lives of 44 climbers. Surviving the Kummbu Icefall requires a mix of skill, preparation, and timing. Most climbers begin their journey through the icefall before sunrise, when the freezing nighttime temperatures hold the ice in place. As the day warms, the ice begins to shift. By mid-afternoon, the icefall becomes a no-go zone, where only the foolhardy would dare to tread. Even the most experienced climbers feel the weight of the icefall's dangers. With every crevasse crossed and every ice block scaled, they know they are racing against time, and the mountain itself. For those who are unprepared or who have yet to acclimatize to the altitude, the icefall can be a grueling 10 to 12-hour ordeal, while seasoned climbers may push through in a matter of hours. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.